Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator, bringing you the podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they are not alone, that everyone starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm excited to be interviewing Kelli Hansen, and she is the founder of BCC Evolution. Welcome, Kelli.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, and I met Kelli through another one of my interviewees on the podcast. So I always like this cascading effect when someone says, oh, I enjoyed being on your show. So therefore, here's a story that I think you will find interesting. And listeners, I got to tell you, this is a very interesting story, very moving and touching story. So when we'll find out here shortly about what BCC Evolution is. But before we do that, Kelli, tell us about where you grew up and how many siblings in your family and your birth order and how you think that might have shaped you.
Sure. That's probably the most interesting story. um, I was born in Utah. So Provo, Utah, I was born, and I was there till I was about 7 years old. But I have five siblings. There's five girls. So two on my mom's side, two on my dad's side, and then my mom and dad had me. So I am actually the only between my mom and my dad. But all of my sisters, I'm the youngest of all five girls. And it's interesting because on my mom's side, we have three, and then on my dad's side, we have three. And when they were together, of course, they had five girls, which bless their heart. Five girls. I'm like, man, I have a stepdaughter right now, and I'm like, holy moly. So, yes, I am the youngest of all of them, but again, kind of an anomaly because I'm the only one between my mom and my dad. And I, again, was born in Utah, born and raised Mormon. However, we moved to Colorado when I was 7. I moved with my mom, and my dad and all my sisters, they have lived in Utah their whole lives. And I am no longer practicing Mormon. My mom is actually a lesbian, and it just was frowned upon by the Mormon church. So just made the choice when I was about 12 years old that it wasn't really my thing, I guess I could say, and really looked into other religions, and not really practicing anything at this time. Really, I believe in something higher, but I just don't find myself to be that type of person to go to church. So I think that birth order wise, my sisters on my mom's side, well, it's actually kind of, I guess you could say both, but my sisters in the middle are the more outspoken. And then you have my oldest sisters who feel like they had to take care of everybody else. And then me being the baby, I guess, had the luxury of all of them paving my way, especially my middle sister on my mom's side. She definitely paved my way really well. So I didn't get in trouble, I guess, as much. And um, my my parents, I got away with a lot more things, I guess you could say, for sure. And my sisters always held that against me, right? Um, but I was going back and forth from Utah to Colorado ever since I was 7. So I've been flying by myself since I was little. And I would go back to my dad's every single break we had. So summer, spring, and winter. And it was, I mean, that was just kind of my life. Both my parents middle class. We never were rich, but we were never lacking. I always was able to have what I wanted for the most part. Not so much how my son now has it today, but um, I definitely I'd go to my dad's, and I'd get all the sugary cereal and he'd give me anything that I wanted. And then I'd go to my mom's and I never got the sugary cereal. She never let me do that. But yeah, definitely two very extreme families, I guess you could say. Dad's side, Mormon, mom's side, not so much. But birth order, being the baby, I definitely think it has put maybe pressure on me almost because all my other sisters, um, they kind of had their way, right? Like the oldest always took care of everybody. The middle one was kind of that odd child out that almost felt lost. And then the baby always got everything. Um, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, and I got to tell you, I love the answers from everyone, and like yours is kind of this blended family, and and that influences how you're raised. It sounds like a big part of you was growing up quickly because you were traveling by yourself, and the expectation is that you were kind of had to be as grown up as everybody else, even though they were all looking out for you, and treating you like the baby, but you were probably like, no, I'm grown up, and
Yeah,
wow.
definitely.
So interesting. And then, like you said, then there's the whole, organized religion part of it versus the spiritual side of, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of differences there. So very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So introvert or extrovert?
So interestingly enough, I used to be very introverted and now I'm very extroverted.
And what do you think made that shift? And is it from an energy perspective in terms of where you get your energy, or is it more from an expressive perspective?
I think a little bit of both. I let's see, I'm trying to think when that shifted. I mean, I've always been like an outgoing person and I've had my little groups of friends and I've always been very nice and open. I know when as I grew up, like I had glasses and going through elementary school, I was picked on. And then once I got to middle school, transition wise, I think it was around sixth grade. I change from an elementary school that I had gone to since I was little. And then I was with the cool crowd, but the girls were kind of mean to me because I wore glasses. And then I changed to a different middle school and I met some of my friends that I'm still friends with today. And it really, I think that was like the transition for me from when I was introverted, kind of being bullied a little bit, to moving to that extrovert when I was actually having friends. And I know as I got older, being in leadership roles, I had to be extroverted. So
Yeah, it brings out the confidence. You got to have the confidence, right? And or at least appear that you do.
yes.
But also, I think there's a maturity aspect, right, in terms of what you when you're willing to express yourself, but also just finding, well, where do you get your energy? Is it from being around other people and being with people and generating ideas with people, or is it more being by yourself and all of that? So sometimes that's a more reflective way of being. So okay, so on a different scale, we're going to talk about the fun meter here. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato and 5 being the life of the party, where do you put yourself?
um I don't know about today, but I thought I was pretty fun back in the day. So, I would say that I am definitely more of the life of the party. Like I love talking to people and I like getting out there and having fun. Of course, right now is a little bit different. Obviously, like we don't have that ability so much to be out there, but I definitely, before I had kids, I had a lot of fun. Um, Dancing was my thing. So we went to clubs all the time. I had a best friend that we literally had a place we would go every single night to go dancing. And I mean, honestly, I thought I was fun. I had a lot of people that hung out with me. And yeah, I feel like I was definitely the life of the party. And then once I became a mom, that all changed for
That
sure.
okay. totally get it. Totally get the different phases of our lives.
Yeah.
Okay, on a different meter, we're going to talk about the risk meter now, but same scale, 1 to 5, 1 being low risk taker, 5 being high risk taker. Where do you put yourself?
I am definitely a 4 to 5. I One of my bucket lists was to go skydiving, and I have before I turned 40. So last year I turned 40, and I officially went twice before I turned 40. Also have walked on glass and walked on fire. And it was really part of a transformation academy that broke me out of fears that were holding me back. So it was almost like a forced thing, but I definitely I love dirt biking. I like snowboarding. So I'm definitely one of those 4 to 5.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to correct you. Maybe I'm going to put you on maybe the 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 5. When you started talking about walking on fire and walking on glass and skydiving, I did the indoor skydiving, and that's about the extent of what I think my brain will let me do. It was a fun feeling, and it's like great. And someone said, "Oh, are you going to go, jump out of a plane now?" I'm like, "Well, that's very different. That's very different than the indoor skydiving, where there's a fan and a net below you." So, okay, well, I love all those questions because they really help us understand kind of who you are and who you like being. So now let's talk a little bit about what it means to be the founder of BCC Evolution, what you do, what the organization is. Give us a little bit of that, and then we'll dive into how did I get here.
Sure. Yes. So BCC Evolution, we were founded officially on June 30th, 2018. I lost my middle sister, one of my sisters on my mom's side, to completed suicide in February 20th, 2017. And so I just knew that I couldn't sit around and do nothing. And I made this decision after about a year that I wanted to make a difference somewhere. And that's really where BCC Evolution came. And the BCC stands for Because Carrie Cared. My sister's name was Carrie. And evolution is because we're ever evolving. And it has been incredible, to say the least. The first couple of years I was kind of doing it myself. It was kind of this side project that I wanted to help everybody and I wanted to make a difference. And I didn't know quite what I was doing. And I don't know if I still some days don't know, but it has been an amazing journey through, it's a mental health and suicide awareness nonprofit. I was really focused on the suicide aspect, obviously, due to my sister, but I really found that there were so many amazing nonprofits out there that were really leading the charge in the suicide awareness space, that I felt like mental health was where we were lacking, because my sister did suffer from some mental health challenges, and our family has also. And so I really, truly, as I deep dived into the space, believe that mental health was where we were missing the mark, because I feel like a mental health condition is what leads people to complete suicide. So BCC Evolution has definitely been this amazing project that is continuing, and um, it's just exciting where we're at this point, especially going into this year.
Yeah. Well, like you said, mental health is, well, when we talked before, there's such a stigma about mental health, right? And we don't even talk to our friends about it a lot of times, right? If you're suffering or if you're struggling with stuff. So yeah, that's a great place to start, such a root cause. And so thank you for taking action, because I know many times when something tragic like that hits, it's hard to figure out what to do, right? I mean, there's such a grieving process, and then how do you move on from that? So thank you. So my normal question here is, when you're in junior high and high school, is this what you wanted to be when you grew up? And that's not a good question here, because obviously you didn't know this was going to happen with your sister, so that's not what inspired it. But I guess I would ask, if we could go back, what did you want to be when you grew up? I knew it wasn't probably this necessarily, but obviously I'm interested to share with everyone how you got to this point. But you're a young girl. What did you want to be?
Yeah, I actually, when my mom is a teacher, so I always wanted to either be a teacher or a nurse. And I, or a dancer, actually, that was really my main. My first thing was I wanted to be a dancer. And I did actually get into the University of Manoa in Hawaii. I got into their dance program, the college, but I ended up not going due to a guy.
Oh, what? You passed up Hawaii for a guy? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm like kicking myself, for that one. But uh I mean, dance has always been my passion and something that I wanted to go for. My next best was being a teacher, but then I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to deal with kids. And then I'm like, well, they don't really get paid. So then I was like, I really want to be a nurse. I had always loved the medical field. Actually, right out of high school, my senior year, I worked at a pediatric office and I just loved being there. And honestly, I mean, I'm like, how can I listen to all these screaming children? But you really get used to it. And so I wanted to become a nurse and I was working full time, and the nursing program was a full time program, and I just couldn't make both of them work. I
Mm.
started nursing school and then ended up dropping out. So, yeah, those were the three things that I wanted to be as I grew up.
Yeah. So then what were some of did you end up going on to college then? And what, what then did you decide?
Yeah, I went to college right out of high school. I went to Metro in Denver and I couldn't decide. I wanted to be a marine biologist because I loved animals. Started that program, realized that it's a lot of math and science, and I'm not so good at those.
You're like, when do the
Um,
animals come in? Where's that? That's the fun part, right? What's this math
yeah.
and science stuff?
I'm like, when can I go work with whales? Um, and that didn't happen. So I ended up dropping out 3 years. And then I ended up going back to college 10 years later and got a bachelor's in communication and a minor in psychology.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then you get out into the workforce and start, earning, right? And start figuring out, well, what are the skills or what are the things that now that you're still interested in, but that also then, fit into probably the business environment. So very cool. So it wasn't whales, it wasn't dancing. It's unfortunate that the nursing program is a full-time program because it seems like they're missing the boat there, that it would be more that a lot of people need to be in a flexible work schedule, right, in order to make school work and work, to pay for it financially and all that. Wow, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wanted Denver has it's called Platt College, but it's the full time and it's a little bit shorter time frame than actually going to a university. And that's really the one I wanted to go to. But it was that Monday through Friday, and I was just trying to work. So, yeah, I wish that I had had that opportunity at the time, but sometimes you have to go for what's making ends meet at the time. So.
Yeah, yeah, there's how do I live? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
how do I improve myself and advance myself and all of that. Yeah, okay. So the good news is you went back, got that degree. So what were some of your first jobs then?
So right out of high school, I was at the pediatric office, and then I went into the restaurant industry. Seemed to be the thing in the day. I was in restaurant for quite some time, and I actually found a career job at Comcast back in 2006, and I was there for about 5 years, and left and went to a boudoir photography studio that I was at for a couple years, and then shifted back into the restaurant business. Ended up having my son, and then I actually went back to Comcast after that. So currently, I am working full time doing Comcast and then full time doing BCC Evolution.
Oh, okay. So this is one of those transitionary periods for you in terms of, have the full-time job, start the passion project while you have the full-time job, and then figure out how to maybe transition over. What do you do at Comcast?
I am a sales supervisor on the business side.
And what was part of your communication degree helpful then for getting that job? And
Yeah, I actually, the reason why I originally started the communication degree was because Comcast has an amazing program that they pay for tuition, and it was on the list. So I was like, well, if I want to get into a manager position, I need to get a communication degree. And then the psychology degree or the psychology minor was just because I had to have a minor in communicate for the communication major. And I picked psychology because it's always been fascinating to me. And so, yeah, that was my original reason why I got into it. And then it just ended up that it was like the perfect thing where I'm at now today.
well, yeah, because when I think about your focus being around mental health, having a communications degree and a psychology degree, and so training in those areas would be super helpful for what you're doing and the work you're doing now. It'd give you a great foundation for that. So, wow. Well, I commend you. So you've been working full time and then going to school part time. It sounds like to get your degree. I did the same thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do or be out of high school, and through had a series of jobs, and then I finally got into a corporate job. And at the time it was American Express. It later IPO'd and became First Data, but they offered a wonderful tuition reimbursement program, and I took advantage of that, and it was great. I mean, I got a business degree while I was working in business, so it was really it was awesome. I love that companies do that. I don't know that so many of them still do that. Do you know, does Comcast still offer that?
They do actually. I mean, for a corporate job, right? Like, I mean, Comcast has amazing, amazing benefits, not just tuition, but they offer a slew of benefits as far as like free services when you work there. They have like the employee services and adoption assistant and financial assistance. Like they offer a ton. So yeah, they definitely still do the tuition reimbursement, which I think is huge, especially, I mean, it's a really large corporation, but they definitely take care of their employees for sure.
Yeah, and invest in their employees. Yeah, I mean, well, and it's when you think about it, your employees are what put the service out there and enable you to do everything. So you got to take care of them. So okay, so now you're kind of wearing two hats. You have your full-time job at Comcast, but running a nonprofit, that's a full-time job in itself. So as I think you've alluded to. So how are you making all that work? And how did you get some of your leadership skills and training? I mean, did that come with a communications degree?
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of it did on the degree side. I to be honest, I probably should have paid attention a lot better in college. Now that I'm especially on the psychology aspects, some of that stuff would have been really useful now. But um, I I truly believe I had a really amazing manager the first time I worked at Comcast because I left and then I was rehired, and she was really great about building me up as a leader. She really told me that she was grooming me to be a manager. We got really, really good at our communication as far as emails and speaking and everything surrounded around leadership. And yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge for sure. My heart is really fully in BCC Evolution, and my mind is with Comcast. It was kind of this thing that I was like, I want to run this nonprofit, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to save some lives. and, and that's kind of, I mean, the first couple of years we did some volunteer program and we did things here and there, but it wasn't really truly um, like a business model, right? Like I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was just wanting to make an impact somewhere and do something. And the main reason was because I really truly felt like with my sister, I totally shut my emotions off to her, and I never learned how to identify or see what was going on with her because I just couldn't anymore. And I wanted to do that somehow after her life, right? And so with Comcast and then the nonprofit, I was like, I'm making a difference over here, but yet I have to make money, which I wasn't doing with a nonprofit. I was just trying to help as many people, and the foundation of it was donations and fundraisers, and a nonprofit cannot sustain just living off of those. You really have to create this revenue model, and it's really only been within the last year that I've started developing these leadership skills. I've been a supervisor within Comcast for going on 6 years now. And so doing a lot of trainings through Comcast has helped me build that leadership. But then also on the flip side, really understanding a business model and how you need to have revenue actually coming in versus just relying on donations and fundraisers. And I have surrounded myself with like-minded entrepreneurs that have really been the catalyst of me understanding what it really truly is to be a leader and build a business. So that's kind of where I'm transitioning now, is to BCC Evolution, in that business model.
Yeah. Well, that's great that you have that aha. It's so easy to be caught up in the mission and all the work that you're doing. But if it's not sustainable, then where does that leave you? Right. So, and then, well, it leaves you exhausted, is what it leaves you. So, yeah, because I've been part of nonprofits before as well, on the board and kind of working boards and stuff. So, totally get it. And, it's such a fallacy. I think that people, nonprofit is not a business model, it's a tax status, and that's the only difference. So your nonprofit has to be profitable and has to generate revenue in order to do all the great work that you're doing. So yeah, you really do need to bring that business mindset to it, but many times that gets overlooked. So it's great that you're bringing all of that to the forefront. And I really admire you that you recognize the difference between being a supervisor and being a leader of an organization, and the all of the different skill sets that go with both. And now you got a foot in each. So it probably makes the learning and growth and the application of each probably both applicable, right? And you can apply both in both of your worlds. So
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
now, when we talked before, you also mentioned that you have some coaching certifications. So don't you really have like 3 jobs? And then you throw that you're a mom in there, there's 4. Is there more than that? Is there
Oh,
something I
yeah.
missed?
Yeah, I last year I decided I was going to get my NLP, it's neuro linguistic programming practitioner certification. It was really a huge aha moment for me after my sister passed, and actually the thing that got me thinking about BCC evolution. Um, there's processes. So basically NLP works with your unconscious mind and really breaks through the fears or phobias, or you can enhance or change any beliefs or patterns that you currently have that run your life. And for me, I was able to go to this event called The Greatest Year of Your Life. After it was a year after my sister had passed, and I was able to do a session that it took us back to when you were born, and I was able to forgive my sister and forgive myself. And I never thought that would ever happen, but a year later, it was something that completely transformed my life. And so I've done sessions here and there, and I've learned a lot about NLP over the last couple of years. And it was so impactful to me that I wanted to help others. So last year I got my practitioner certification, and then this summer I'm going to get my master's certification. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I have a lot of hats that I wear, um, and to be honest, I the last couple of years I've been on this huge self development journey and been consuming myself with information and all of these challenges that I really have been busy, right? Like just so busy all the time. And I know that I haven't really made the impact that I want to because I am wearing so many hats. So yes, I'm an NLP coach. I'm actually training to be a public speaker. I am a educator for mental health, and then also the founder of BCC Evolution, mom, spouse, stepmom.
Sister, daughter.
Yes. So lots and lots of hats. And I don't know how I have been doing it, but I know that what I'm doing with BCC Evolution is so important. And what I'm doing with my NLP coaching business is so important that that is what drives me. And I know eventually I'll get to a place that I am only doing BCC full time because there is such a huge need, and that is really where my heart lies.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point you are going to have to, you can't keep um, fractioning your energy and your attention, right? At some point you've got to focus, but that's a pretty big leap to take. And like you said, and so until you have that revenue base and it's more sustainable, that makes it more difficult, right? Now,
Yeah, definitely.
are there grants and programs that would support you financially, that are either government run or other foundation that are, I mean, is that how you're changing your revenue stream?
Yeah, there are. We are just learning about grants. So I do have a board. We have 5 members on our board, but none of us are really like grant experts.
Mm.
So I actually just bought a grant kit. There's some really amazing other nonprofits like Funding for Good, and they do a lot of training around all things nonprofit centric. And so we're really starting to deep dive and learn about grants. Um, so that we can get money that way. The big things on the horizon right now. So we do teach mental health first aid currently, and that is through another organization, Mental Health First Aid USA. But I am in the process of writing a BCC Evolution curriculum that'll be trauma centric, and it will be another layer of that education program that will be able to bring in revenue. And then we'll have a master education program that gives people a revenue stream if they choose to, so that they can teach our curriculum. And then the other part is that we're going to build a program specifically for middle school students that's more in their language. Like, why is it important to know about mental health? Why is it not okay to like tell other kids to go kill themselves and or be mean? And then really teach them how to help versus hurt. And those are going to be our main revenue streams that we're looking to build this year.
Wow. Wow. It's so funny. It didn't even occur to me about middle school until you brought that up. But I realized that really is a foundational part, right? When you hear about, young people and, how they're either bullied or that, that time in their life is so impactful and it feels like it's either the end of the world or, and, so the impact you can have with your words can be so powerful and most don't
Yeah,
even recognize that. So,
yeah, I definitely, I mean, my passion lies there because I feel like that's the demographic that we miss the most. And I know from one of our very first mental health first aid classes that we trained in 2018, we had a mother who had lost her 9-year-old. So I know that it's getting younger and
nice.
younger.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's getting younger and younger, and that's the time where they're having all these hormones and you have all these chemical imbalances, and we don't know how to help that age range. And so for me, I feel like that's where we're missing the boat because there's all these things for teenagers and high schoolers, but what about those middle schoolers that are going through all these changes? We really need to focus on them.
Yeah. Well, and it's such an awkward time in all of our life when you're that age, right? Because your body's changing, your mind's changing, your friends are sometimes changing, and everybody, yeah. And no one's comfortable, but yet you think everybody else is and you're not, and they're just faking it better.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you and how old was your sister?
So my sister is 7 years older than me.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, how old was I when she so I will be 41 this year, and it was 2017. So
Oh, I asked you to do the math. I brought
I
in the
know, right?
math.
I'm like, math's my not my good part. But she was in her mid 40s when she completed. Did I get the math right there?
Yeah. So then, and then you said she had kind of struggled with mental health throughout, and that you felt like you had to forgive yourself and forgive her. But you just, I'm assuming, because most people and most families don't know how to deal with mental health, right? And even know that they need to get help for someone when it might be just, oh, well, they're just either difficult or that's just the way they are or what have you, right? But many times there's medication that can help, or therapy, or, right? I mean, is that kind of the what you meant by the mental health aspect? And
Yeah, my sister, so she had attempted 6 other times, and my family really, I mean, so every time she attempted, she'd call us and be like, I love you, take care of my kids, you're a great mom. So we always knew something was happening, and we would call the ambulance or 911 and go see what was happening. My sister, I called her my crazy sister, and I called her over dramatic because I didn't understand. Like, she was always very dramatic about everything. It always seemed like she wanted attention. Like, that was the type of person that I thought she was. But it was really because I just didn't understand. And I mean, my sister had a substance abuse issue. She also had MS, so she was in a lot of pain. But she was also a hypochondriac, and it was like everything happened to her, but none of the rest of us girls, any of that happened to us. So for us, we didn't understand what she was going through, and we always thought she was either lying or it was just trying to get attention. And that's how we thought when she had attempted prior. But she ultimately ended up having a hysterectomy, a botched hysterectomy that almost took her life. And it seemed like for once she actually wanted to be alive. So our family, 5 years later after that, when she completed, we didn't even see the signs. But in retrospect, when I look at it now with the tools and the training that I have, because I didn't have that back in the day, I see her unraveling. Like, I can pinpoint when the unravel started happening. And it was probably a good year before that because she started pushing everybody away that meant anything to her. But we didn't see it because we were so shut off. And so that's what I say when I I call them the hoodoo voodoo we do's, or the shoulda coulda wouldas. And it's like, what could I have done? What should I have done? But really, like, it's not if you've lost somebody, it's not your fault. And really, it was their choice. And the reason why I say completed is because when you say committed, it is like a crime. Like, that's the stigma around committed, is this crime. So really, as a society, we're trying to change that verbiage to completed or died by, because they didn't commit a crime. Maybe they did to your heart, right? But really, it's not a crime. They did it to themselves. And you couldn't have, you may or may not have been able to change that outcome. So you can't just sit around and be like, I should have, or I could have, or all you can do is learn how to grow forward and use the tools and the training. At least for me, that's what I've done, is now moving forward, and what I have learned over the years, I'm able to assist other people to potentially, or so that they don't have to go through what our family went through.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you explained that, because I heard you use that term completed. I guess I assumed it was because there was attempts before, and then this time it completed. She, was, yeah. So I wasn't sure what that meant. So I appreciate that, the understanding of that. But can I ask, what, now that you've had more mental health training, what could you have done for her, maybe, or your parents had done for her, maybe as either a young person, or, I mean, is there a point where once you become an adult, how do you help an adult with something if they don't want to be helped? It's kind of like that whole substance abuse thing, right? Is part of a bigger problem.
Yeah, you can, I mean, it's like the saying, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Hmm.
Um, you can, I mean, you can watch for the signs that are happening and ask them. I mean, really, what I have learned the most is that nobody really truly wants to die. They just want somebody, anybody to understand what they're going through. And usually it has something to do with their personal emotions, finances, situation, whatever's happening in that moment. And they really just want the pain to stop. And they don't know how to make it stop other than take their life. There are people out there that don't want to be alive, and those people, you'll never be able to change their decision. And so you can't make it about you, right? Like, it's unfortunate that we do lose people, and there are always signs that happen. It's just whether you know how to acknowledge them or not. And then asking the question, that's the biggest thing that I've learned, is be as direct as possible. Ask them, are you going to kill yourself? Or don't use the, like, are you going to harm yourself? Because harm and kill are two different things. And it sounds very hard to say, and it is hard to say. We actually practice it in mental health first aid, how to say it. But you need to be really as direct as possible, and don't shy away because you feel uncomfortable, because your uncomfortableness could potentially lead them to lose their life. So be as direct. Are you going to kill yourself? Or, and then if they say yes, how, when, where, so that you have more information, and get them the help that they need, and or ask them how you can support them. How can you listen? And don't judge them. Like, don't try to put your own opinion on top of them. The guilt trips don't work, by the way. Don't try to guilt them and say your family's going to miss you, I'm going to miss you. Like, at that moment, it's not about you, it's about them. And so I've really learned over the years, you have to be direct, and you have to watch for those signs. And they may or may not give you any information, but as long as you're there, and whether you're just sitting there and letting them be, that can be even more powerful, because you may be that one person that actually cares and nobody else has really cared. So, what I have learned is that most people just want to be understood, and they just want whatever's happening at that situation to go away. They don't actually want to die.
Yeah. And these thoughts are in their head and they've never really, maybe they haven't articulated it to themselves or to anyone, but they're kind of there. So by being direct and having them actually say yes or no, it's pretty powerful, I would guess, for them to actually say, yeah, that I am having those thoughts and talk through it. Wow. And that they're trusting you with something so personal, but that maybe they feel understood.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's helpful. I went through another a friend of mine is part of the she's on the board for, I think it's called the Depression Center. And she invited, several of her friends to, and this was, it sounds like such a weird training, but it was about suicide prevention training. And it was that same thing, right? About, bringing that and being very direct, asking the question. And we tend to dance around it, and we just want them to be okay. And then you do make it about you. So all the things you said are reminding me of, oh, I've been through this training before. And so, but I so appreciate how you said it, that everyone needs to hear this, and everyone needs to have a perspective of that, because you just don't know.
Mhm. Definitely. And it's hard. I mean, it's not easy. I can tell you it's the hardest with those that are closest to you, because you think that everything's okay, but it may or may not be, and they probably won't respond to you as well as maybe a stranger. So if you're concerned about somebody and you don't know how to address it, I mean, like BCC Evolution, we will always respond to anybody if you have questions. Taking a class like the mental health first aid class, and or once our curriculum is designed, it'll help give you these tools that you can understand. But yeah, being as direct as possible. And it is super hard with those that are closest to us. So don't feel like you have to take that on yourself.
Yeah, I don't have to be the therapist or the one who goes out and trains myself, right? I just have to recognize the signs and ask questions and listen, and then try to give help, right? And provide resources and phone numbers and things of that nature. So
Yes.
wow. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for, I mean, this is a very um, it's a very serious subject, and it's based on, tragedy that happened to you. So I know it can't be easy to talk about this, but it's also with all the training you've had with NLP, getting through your own grief, and then now the great work that you're doing, that you can really make a difference for others. So again, thank you for taking on this charge, and for wearing so many hats. And so I'm hopeful that soon you will kind of taper down some of your hats, because I'm also a little worried about you. Like, what are you doing for self-care and and all of that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely I it has been a challenge for sure. I was actually on a medical leave last month, and I really realized that I was so excited for my surgery because I just wanted to sleep. And I was
Ah,
like, there may be something there if if all I'm like, I just want to sleep, I want to do nothing just for a little bit of time. So I definitely am, I live in this world, right, every single day, but I have to acknowledge my own self and when I'm capable or not capable to help other people. And that's one thing I want to say too to the listeners is, if you are not okay to help somebody, don't try to. That is totally okay. I have to be able to take care of myself and my family and my needs. And I really am getting to this place that I can't do everything. I can't work two full-time jobs. And I need to make that transition into BCC Evolution because the work that I do is so important. And I know that especially coming out of COVID, right? Like mental health is a huge issue and we need to start talking about it. And that's my whole goal, is to empower people to break their silence so that their mental health challenge doesn't rule their life. And the only way that we know how to do that is through education, awareness, and then bringing resources. And I need to be able to transition out of my other full-time job into this one because that's that's where my heart lies. And yes, I will be able to taper down quite a bit, but really focus on something that's going to make a huge impact on the world.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Kelly, I could probably keep talking to you. I have all kinds of questions, but we do have to wrap up here. So, when you do look back on your career and your life, and so much of it is both intertwined now, right? Um, Tell us what you think has served you best. It could be a habit or a discipline or maybe a personality trait or a strength. What's served you best?
Mhm. That's a good question. I believe, I mean, my openness, so my open heart and just really wanting, I guess I feel like when I was younger I always wanted to help people, but I didn't really know how. And I knew that I wanted to be in some sort of space or capacity that um, was in that field. And of course, I went into like a telecommunication company. Not sure how that ended up happening, but I always had this space in my heart that I really truly wanted to help people. And I think that the one thing that has helped me is just the compassion for people and being open and honest. And that's, I think, what has really helped me, and finding different things that make me happy, if it's whether it's dirt biking or it's like helping with other nonprofits or whatever it may be, finding those things that make me happy and then those people that surround me, I think has been the biggest thing too, is like-minded individuals that surround me.
Yeah. So I guess I'm guessing your friends and your spouse and they're high energy. They're also doing the same, wanting to make a difference in the world, but also enjoying the things you enjoy and that kind of a thing. So that you're all kind of, like you said, like-minded moving forward.
Yes,
Very cool.
definitely.
Very cool. Well, and you talked about openness, but I also look at when you said you wanted to be a nurse, um, you didn't go the medical route, but you're going the mental health route. And while telecommunications wasn't in the plan, but it got you here, right? It got you that communications course, that psychology course, the leadership training. I mean, so yeah, it's kind of, isn't it funny how, you can't connect the dots forward, but you can connect the dots backward, and they all make sense when we get there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So any words of wisdom that you have, you kind of migrated to, or that's been a mantra for you that you would like to share?
My mantra for so long, which I actually got a tattoo of it, but dance like no one is watching. It's always been one of those mantras. And then the one that I created is open your mouths, minds, and hearts, and together we can make mental health matter.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's so powerful. And it has to start with kind of the mouth, right? You have to say something, you have to let someone know, because we don't know what's going on. But I guess for those of us maybe who are in a good place, it's about asking and listening and really listening, really listening.
Yeah,
So, wow.
definitely.
Well, thank you. That's a very inspirational words of wisdom there to end on. I think last time we talked, you mentioned that you have an event coming up that maybe listeners need to know about. And I'm going to go ahead and publish this episode ahead of that so maybe people can participate. So tell us about your event.
Yeah, so we have our International Film Festival coming up on May 22nd. This is our third annual. So last year, due to COVID, we had to go virtual, and it ended up being really, really cool because we had films from across the world, and we ended up having about 45 films that we narrowed down to 12. And we had films from the Netherlands, Malaysia, Vietnam, Ireland, Canada, and then the US. But we were able to, with Zoom technology, bring all of the filmmakers on to do Q&A sessions, which was really, really cool last year. And this year we are going to be doing it virtual again with limited in-person tickets. It's going to actually be really exclusive VIP to get the behind the scenes of the film festival. But then the rest of the tickets will be virtual. But it's all things mental health and suicide awareness. They're short, independent films from, again, across the world. We have about 30 entries currently, and we'll narrow those down to a time frame. But it'll be from 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on, again, Saturday, May 22nd. So you can go to bccevolution.org and grab your tickets. It's under the events. You can join us in person if you're in the Denver area, if you want to go for VIP, or join us virtually. And sometimes it's hard to watch these films, but really the end goal of the event is to open up the conversation about mental health and suicide and really talk about those issues so that we can break the stigma and then talk to the filmmakers, which is really cool, and find out why they made this film.
Yeah, the behind the scenes and the why is so, I don't know, I always find that so interesting. Obviously I'm all about the story, right? Not only that they told this story and in a way that is so probably powerful and visual and all of that, but then also then their story behind it on why they told it. So great. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, again, I will be posting Kelli's information on my website, so you can find that posted on lifestorycurator.com, and then I'll give you access to all of her stuff. But she's also said it here, so you can find her on BCC Evolution and support the cause. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And listeners, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe below, and then you'll be alerted as to other interviews as they're published. And if you have any questions for me or for Kelli, or would like to get in touch with Kelli about her work, You can find me in this interview on lifestorycurator.com, and I'll make sure, Kelli, if you'll provide me your social media information, but also if you have any other resource numbers that you think would be helpful, we can post those out there as well. Because this, I feel like, is a real opportunity for people who might have that aha moment. They've got a family member or maybe themselves or something. This might be a chance to do some reach out. So anyway, again, thank you for sharing your story and for doing such great work in the world and making a difference.
Thank you so much.
And on that note, I'll wrap up by saying, let's stay safe and stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Thank you.